Indianapolis history will come alive during a new program series in the Indianapolis Special Collections Room at Central Library. On Sunday, September 20th at 2 p.m., the topic will be Railroads in Indianapolis, and the presenter will be Francis Parker, retired professor of urban planning at Ball State University, who now works with the Indiana Transportation Museum and the Whitewater Valley Railroad. Today we find Francis in between stops here at the Transportation Museum train at the Indiana State Fair. First of all, Francis, thanks for joining us. What's the significance of this train today?
Well, the train itself is historic. The equipment is, the youngest thing on here is 1953.
Wow.
The railroad has been here since the 1850s. It goes back to the earliest days of railroads in Indianapolis, so it's a historic railroad.
Now, is this considered the entirety of the Transportation Museum, or is there an actual
No, there
place?
is. The museum is in Noblesville Forest Park.
Okay.
That's where we're based, that's where we do our maintenance. But every year, our most intense operation is this commuter service.
This is the big
to
venue
fair.
for the
This
year.
is the big venue.
You're also involved in the Whitewater Valley Railroad, which is an actual operating railroad museum also,
Yes,
correct?
yes, down at Connorsville, between Connorsville and Metamora, Indiana. And we do a Polar Express down there, and we do Thomas the Tank Engine.
Tell us about your love of railroads and trains. How, I'm sure this began as a youth.
It began early. From my bedroom window, I could see trains. That may have done it. My father was sort of a closet rail fan, I think, but we didn't have any railroaders in the family tree. It just sort of happened.
Okay. Now your program again will be in September 20th at 2 p.m. at Central Library. You'll be talking about railroads in Indianapolis. Will you be taking us on a journey back into the 1800s during that talk?
It will be. It starts with history. With me, everything starts with history. Indianapolis got its first railroad in 1847, and then in the early 1850s, there was a sudden explosion. 5 more were built, including the line that we're standing next to. And Indianapolis was a railroad center briefly before Chicago was, which I think is interesting.
Well, obviously railroads were a primary means of commerce and transportation, but how important was the railroad in the development of Indianapolis into the big city it is today?
Well, think about this. Indianapolis was the first state capital, really, to develop without a waterway. They thought they had a waterway, but the river turned out not to be navigable. So Indianapolis couldn't have grown without the railroads.
Okay. Now, what about the state of railroads today? There's a lot of talk about the relatively unsophisticated network of railroads in America. What's the status of trains and railroads today?
Well, the freight, depends whether you're talking about freight or passenger.
Right.
The freight railroads are booming. That they have, in some cases, too much business. But we have trains coming through Indianapolis, coming from the West Coast, sometimes all the way to the East Coast with containers of stuff from China and the Far East. So the freight railroads are as busier than they ever have been. Amtrak is sort of a skeleton network.
Right.
And as you may know, the Hoosier State was almost eliminated between Indianapolis and Chicago. It's gotten a new lease on life with a new operator, and we keep our fingers crossed that that goes well.
Do you find interest in railroads is still great among youth today, or is that kind of passed a generation by?
Hard question. It's certainly passed a generation by, but I'm starting to see people coming, I think, back in, getting interested in, oh, this is cool stuff.
And here at the Indiana State Fair, which by the time this airs will be concluded, I'm guessing families still love to ride the Transportation Museum train.
Absolutely, yeah. It's fun. Sometimes I'm conductor. In that case, I get to interact with the passengers and the little kids. It's a good time. They like it.
Again, your program at Central Library on Sunday, September 20th. And again, a review for people. What will they hear? What you hope people will take away from your program there at the library?
The importance of railroads historically and the fact that they're still viable today in Indianapolis.
Francis Parker, the presenter in the new ISCR program series at Central Library on Sunday, September 20th. Other upcoming programs through the rest of the year will include topics such as electrification of Indianapolis, theaters in Indianapolis, even Italians, the Italian influence in Indianapolis. The ISCR will also hold an open house in October 17th, for you to be able to see all of the historic collections there in the Indianapolis Special Collections Room. Francis, thanks for joining us. Best
My
of luck.
pleasure.
And for more information, just go to ndpl.org.